JB, Back It Up Binge podcast. I'm talking with former NFL lineman Mark Dennard. Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Really appreciate you getting on with me. Like I always do when I interview former players, I always like to start from the beginning, Mark. So let's go back to high school. You grew up in Texas. You lettered in football and baseball. I know you from playing football in the NFL, but what position did you play in baseball?
Well, actually, baseball, I grew up in Bay City, Texas, right there south of Houston, there on the Gulf Coast all my life and stuff. So I was big into baseball. And actually, before I went to A&M, I liked baseball more than I did football back in those days, back in high school. But I played, I was a pitcher, catcher, and first base. And my senior year, I won the batting title. I hit from both sides of the plate. I was right-handed, left-handed, and I hit both sides of the plate. And I had an offer from Philadelphia Phillies to come and play like in AA, single-A ball. But I had a scholarship to A&M, and I said that was a no-brainer. I'm not going to go play for $50 a game or something. And back in those days, that's where that went.
That's amazing, because I had nowhere did I read that, and that's why I asked. I wrote down on my notes, Mark. I wrote catcher and first base. That was going to be my guess. And a switch hitter.
Hey, don't cut me short. I had 3 one-hitters at my senior year. I wasn't the pitcher. I wasn't no Roger Clemens or anything like that thrown across. No, I'm not doing that. But
so, were you? What was your team growing up? Was it the Astros?
Oh yeah. In fact, when I was in the 12-year-old and 11, 12-year-old, we had a KOX radio baseball contest where we went to the Astrodome, and that's where I met, Don Wilson, Roger Metzger, all those they were the Colt 45s is back when I went. That was back in the 60s is when I went. And it just, my brother and I both did it. So we did it for some years and stuff like that. So it was as a young kid, that was really being the dome scaler and having all these guys come in there. Mickey Mantle, they were playing the Yankees, and Mickey Mantle hit a home run in there and stuff like that. It was great.
Man, we should do a whole episode on your baseball escapades. That is fantastic. You sort of answered my next question, because my next question was football always going to be your focus? Is that where you always wanted to go?
No, that was only high school. That was that was back in the grade schools and high school back with that. When I got the scholarship offer to A&M, that all changed at that point. But that A&M wasn't the first offer that I committed to back there. In those days, it was Arkansas. So,
well, you had a very successful collegiate career. You're an academic All-American, All-Southwest Conference. You were second-team All-Southwest Conference for the 70s. You played for a coach named Emery Bellard. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Emery Bellard. What was he like as a coach? And did he?
Emery Bellard. Emery
Bellard. Okay. What was he like as a coach? Did he prep you for that next level?
There is no question. I've been fortunate throughout my career, either through high school or college or pro. The coaches that I had in high school, it was Charlie Spano that played for Bear Bryant at Alabama. I learned from him. Then here I go to Emery Bellard, and he was just another Don Shula is what he was. He was a perfectionist, and he was a disciplinary. And it was just, I loved him to death. He wasn't a large man, but he was just I thank the world of him because what he did for my career.
That's great. That's great to hear. 78, you enter the draft. You're a 10th round selection of the Dolphins. You go in a class that has some really great names. Let me read some of these off. Guy Benjamin, hopefully true Dolphin fans will know that name. Jimmy Cefalo, Gerald Small, Eric Laxo, Doug Betters, Bruce Hardy, and you. That is a serious draft class.
Well, let me tell you something. See, Jimmy Cefalo and I, we lived together for about 3 years in his high-rise there at the end of my career and stuff. But Bruce Hardy and I are still friends today. And he was 9 and I was 10. And we were on the airplane together going out there to minicamp one year. That's where I met him. And we've been friends ever since. It's been friends. He's in Tennessee now.
Yeah, he grew up in. I know this story about Bruce. He grew up in Utah, right? And he was on the cover of Sports
He was on the
Illustrated.
cover of Sports Illustrated. He was #1 high school football player in 1974. Absolutely. Yeah,
That's right.
he was. He was.
Well,
Hey, I got to tell you one story about Bruce Hardy. If you don't, you got time to hear it?
I'd love to hear it. I love these stories.
Real quick. It was our rookie year, my second year. My first year I got hurt, but the second year we're on the sidelines. Well, Bruce Hardy was designated as a third string quarterback in case everybody got hurt. Griese got hurt or Strock got hurt. He was the third string backup. Well, we were playing, I think, the Atlanta Falcons in the Orange Bowl, and we were beating the hell out of them. And Shula goes over to Sopper. We call him Sop. My nickname to him was Sop. But Bruce Hardy, we went over. He went over to Bruce Hardy. And goes, hey, get ready. We're going to put you in at quarterback because the game was out of hand, and he's going to give him a little experience, right? Bruce was over on the sideline passing the ball to the receivers and stuff. And Shula went back over. He saw him pass. He goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "Well, you told me I'm fixing to go in. You ain't going to throw the ball. You're going to hand the ball off, for crying out loud." That really happened.
That's a great story. One of my favorite. This is just an incredible draft class. But talk about draft day. You get the call. What was that like? Were you expecting to get drafted? Or
It's funny. I was at Kane Hall. I was in my dorm room. Phil Bennett, who's a good friend of mine, been coaching 43 years. In fact, he ought to be here right now. But he was there with me when the call. Well, the first call that came through, it was from the Denver Broncos, and they said, "Hey, Mark, we're fixing to draft you. Wait by the phone." I said, "Okay." So I hung the phone up, and about 5-10 minutes later, whatever it was, phone rang, and it was Bill Davis, player personnel director there at the Dolphins. He goes, "This Miami Dog, we just drafted you." And I went, "Whoa." I said, "What is this the Denver Broncos or is this the Dolphins?" Because they just called me right before he called me and said, "We're going to draft you." So that's how that happened.
That's a great turn of events for you. You came in.
It turned out, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You came in 78, your rookie year. You come to a team that has Langer, Larry Little, Kuchenberg. You're playing with some future Hall of Famers. What was their impact on your career, and who sort of was your mentor?
Jim Langer without a question. See,
okay.
And I do believe that my first year was a godsend getting hurt because there was no reason for them to keep me. I'm not ignorant, okay? I mean, they had Kuchenberg to back up the Langer on center and stuff like that. Well, they kept me, and through that whole year, I practiced the whole year, and I snapped left-handed because I broke my right hand. I snapped left-handed to Griese and all them in practice and went through all the drills, everything for the whole year. I was on the field. So that really helped me understand and learn the offense and everything. So it was a godsend that happened like that. But then the second year came around. When the second year came around, I think it was about the 6th or 7th game that's when Jim got hurt with the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
Well, when after that happened, I was told by Shula and Sandusky that they were going to decide whether they're going to start me or they're going to put Kuchenberg in.
Okay.
And we're fixing to play Houston Oilers with Curly Culp.
That's right.
And so they made the decision to put me in. So the rest is history. Then I started the game, and you were asking me who's one of the biggest influences. That was Jim Langer. Jim Langer came to me. He was on the trip with us and told me, he said, "Mark," he's on his crutches and everything. He said, "I'm going to tell you something." He said, "Curly Culp is a guy that when he plays, he said he's going to take some plays off." And he said he's going to take some plays off. He said, but when he doesn't, and he decides to go to A to B, he said, "You're not going to stop him. I'm not going to stop him. Nobody's going to stop him." And he said, "Don't let that wreck your world when that happens, because it's going to happen." He said, "It's going to happen. Don't get caught up in 1 or 2 plays because that'll ruin your whole, it'll psych you out, and you got to stay focused on that deal." And I really appreciate, and that's what he told me all through my whole career. He goes, "Look, this is a tough game. Those guys are getting paid just like you are across there to kick your ass." And he said, "They're going to win some, you're going to win some. Hopefully you win more than they do. But do not get your your heart down because somebody kicked your ass one or two plays, and he was very thorough with that, and he really helped me. He was I loved him to death. Loved him.
Well, what's interesting is the media guide and the back of your trading card mentions your first start, and they always mention that you went up against Curly Culp, and I don't understand why that was a big deal. And then I remember Curly as a player, and then I realized, I looked at it, he was in the Hall of Fame, and I watched your first start last night on YouTube. I was watching some of those plays. He was a good player.
Well, Curly was about a 6'1" guy like me, and he took off here and there and stuff, but and right there at the end of the game, he came through my face mask, and his thumb went through my eye, and when right there at the end of the game, and when he went through my face mask in my eye, I had triple vision in my eye. They sent me down to the hospital down there in Miami. They thought I had a detached retina.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't a detached retina, but anyway, when he did the eye, I still played the rest of the game. I just couldn't see. I couldn't see out of one eye. And we got through it. And years later, we always play in the NFL alumni or Pastorini's tournament stuff, and Curly would come around. I said, Curly, we'd talk to each other. I said, Curly, you almost you stuck your finger in my eye back then. He was at that time probably in his 70s or late 70s, whatever. He goes, and I said, you punched my eye, I couldn't even see. He goes, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I said, you didn't sound like that on the field back then. Back in the 70s, you didn't sound like that. So
was he one of the tougher guys you went up with or against, or who was the toughest you probably went up against?
I say this all the time. Probably, I went against one of the best guys there was, Bob Mumhauer, every day.
Yep.
And Shula's practices, they wouldn't drop the handkerchief. It was full blow, especially during the fall camp. Everything was full speed except tackling. Okay, and Baumhauer and I had our wars and stuff, and then it was. I mean, going against a guy like him, then you had guys like, Randy White, but the other one that I just sticks out in my mind, I spoke up for him in that Hall of Fame, was Joe Klecko. Joe Klecko was a bad boy. He was bad to the bone. Okay. And of course, I always say every one of them were tough. Every one of them were tough. Just some were a little bit better than the others. But I didn't have any cakewalk any day. I promise you that. There wasn't any cakewalk.
No, not at all. And I was going to ask you, how much going up against Baumhauer and that Killer Bee defense helped you out.
You know what, Jeff? I'll tell you, when I came to Miami, my first year, I found out, and through the next year, 7 years I was there, during our two-a-day camps. And looking back, I can tell you, it was almost sadistic. It was the roughest thing you've ever seen in your life. I mean, you're talking about all hell. I mean, full speed offense in the morning, passing in the offense in the afternoon. But then you get on the line and you run your gassers every day, full pads and all this. You go in there 3 or 4 hours, you come back and you do the same thing, and it's full. I mean, the games were kind of, in the preseason games in those years, were easy compared to what those practices were. I mean, there was times we go out there at night and they put headlights on the fence, and there was, after we ate our meal, we would go out on the practice field for like a 3-a-day.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, not every night, but I'm saying that from time to time he goes, we're going back out on the field. And they go, we didn't have lights on the field. They just turned the car lights on.
And that's when Shula was happy, right? What happened when he was mad at you guys? One of the things he was known for, and I've read about it and I've heard other players talk about it, was the 12-minute run.
Yep. So
maybe you could explain to people what that is. And then my question to you is, did the linemen get a break from the other players?
Well, first of all, the 12-minute run was around 2 football fields, and when in between, the total distance around is 480 yards versus a 440-yard track, on a regular track. So you're 40 yards faster because you got between the fields and all that. And they had coaches at every corner to make sure you didn't cut the corners and stuff like that. And you had to make, whoever you were, in 12 minutes, you had to make 5 laps. You had to make 5 laps or they'd make you run it again.
Wow, 5.
And the only guy I could tell you, the funniest one watching it was Ed Newman. Ed Newman, he was kind of like me. We weren't built for distance, okay? We weren't built for distance. And he had it down to where after he had already been there a few years before me. He had it down to how many steps he had to take around that track to get the five laps, okay? And I'm going, he goes, I need, I don't know how many, I don't know what the number was, but I'm going, you really counted the steps? Yes, I did. And I knew exactly how many I had to have each round I went. I said, God damn, Newman. I said, you're nuts. But that's and if you didn't make it, you're supposed to run it again. I had about 5.5 every time, about 5.5 laps every time.
So every player, every positional player, no matter what position, had to do 5. You didn't get 5, and the receiver gets 6.
Guys like Blackwood and those guys like that stuff, they'd do 7 laps. And guys like offensive linemen, Baumhauer, and J.J. Dewey was right up there with Blackwood. He would run 7 laps. He was an in shape son of a bitch. I'm telling you, he could run. He could run like a deer. And but that's you had to have 5 to get there.
Okay, had to have 5. Okay. You mentioned Ed Newman, and I read about this for everyone that's listening, watching. You were part of the 400-pound club, and what that is you benched over 400. And there was a very finite amount of players. You came in second. You threw a 465, and you were second to Ed Newman. Was that a friendly competition, or was that something where you guys just did it? You benched. He said, "Yeah, I did this," or was that like bragging rights during the year?
No, that was a giving conversation because I knew he was stronger than me. Eddie pumped those weights and stuff. I'm about to tell you something. When I first went there in '78, they didn't have a weight room. They had a swimming pool out there, and they had a room there. It's probably about 12 by 12, and they had a universal gym in there. And that's all they had was a universal gym. They did not have a weight room. And during that 78, 79, they poured concrete on the back of our training center and chain linked it in and everything, and then brought free weights in and all that. That's how that happened. But when I first got there was a universal gym in 1978, and they would bring they would drag a bench out. There was a bench press bench underneath a tree. Orangeburger would be there. And we'd be underneath the tree at the swimming pool, and they'd have these old weights that you didn't know how much they weighed. And just those old bars and stuff, and we're benching off these bars and stuff. I mean, it was old school. It was really old school.
I can't believe they had a universal.
They finally built that weight room there on the end of the building and put in some pretty good weights and stuff. So, but that wasn't in '78. That wasn't there in '78. Nothing was there.
Wow.
I got to tell you about that weight room, because he's a real good friend of mine. We've been to Carmel about 12 times. Don Strock and I we've been good friends for all these years. And he did not lift weights, all right? And one thing I found out back in '78, it just kind of freak you out is you go in there and here these guys are smoking cigarettes in the training room and stuff, and there's their locker and stuff. And I'm going, I just came from college. I go, what is this? I mean, I'm just here I am, a 22-year-old kid coming out. What are they doing here? Stroker never did any weights. He never did anything. And Junior Wade, we had to do all this testing on weights and all this stuff, the running, all that stuff. On the weights, Stroker would go in there and he's smoking a cigarette, and he goes back and tells Junior, he said, I did 4 of those, I did 6 of those, I did 4 of these, 3 of these, and all that. Oh, Don, I didn't know. What's that? You go tell Coach Shula that I didn't do it. So he just got away. He never benched. He never did anything. He didn't lift any weights.
That's great. I met Junior a couple times. Super nice guy. We used to talk whenever I would see him. We'd talk about working out. But perfect segue into the quarterbacks. You played for Griese. You played for Strock. You played with Woodley, and you caught the beginning of Marino. Can you talk a little bit about each of those guys, what they brought, field awareness, leadership, huddle presence?
Well, 3 of them were, and when I say 3 of them were superb. They were superb. Woodley, he was a little shaky on that. I don't want to get into all that stuff, but Don, and Griese and Dan, they were almost. I don't even know why they needed a coach. I mean, they could, and I think that the big thing is not that they know the playbook, but they adapt on game day about what this other team's doing at the present time. They adapt. They come to the sidelines, tell them what they're doing. This is what we need to do, and all this. So they worked great hand in hand. They really did. And the thing about you got Strock and you got Marino, they're 6'5", 6'6" guys. Griese's a 5'10" guy and stuff. I always looked at Griese after all these years, and I was intimidated by him when I played with him and stuff, and sniped with him for a couple of years and stuff. That he was just the valedictorian of the class. I mean, he was so smart. He was just, and he got a bigger kick. He got a bigger kick, an audible out of a pass play to a run play on the side with Zonka or kick to score than he did to throw the football. Because, back then, Jeff, they didn't throw the ball maybe 15, 20 times, So he's not going to throw a lot of passes and stuff. But Bob, I loved him. I did. I did him to death and stuff. And, of course, Stroker and I are real good friends. And Marino, I saw Marino last year. They came to Houston. I went to eat with Cephalo and him and Bo Camper and all those guys.
Right.
We went to eat in Houston and stuff. But Dan is, Don could throw the ball. He could throw the ball. And Dan, Don, and Griese are not going to beat you with your legs. He's not going to beat you with their legs. He's going to beat you with this melon upstairs, okay? And that's what they did. Woodley has some athletic ability. He could throw the ball. He had a strong arm, and he had some legs and stuff. But I know, talking to Strock and Griese, that back in those days, that I'm not bad-mouthing anything. He kind of was running his own ship. He just thought that he kind of knew a little bit more than what needed to be said. But that's no here nor there. But the other three guys, of course, Griese won 2 Super Bowls back to back. I mean, Stroker been there all those years, and then Marino. Who needs to say anything about Marino? Threw the ball better than any quarterback, including Brady, as far as throwing the football. Nobody could throw the football like Marino did. Nobody.
Totally agree. I'm always the one there, talking, defending Dan on the ring controversy, right? But you talk about Strock. Right, you talk about Strock. So this is a great segue. You played in one of the greatest games I've ever watched. It's the 41-38 playoff game, right? So there's 6 seconds left in the half. And I've talked to a lot of people about this. I'm just obsessed with this play for some reason, the hook and lateral, right? So there's 6 seconds left. Woodley got pulled. Strock comes in. He's leading the comeback. He calls timeout. He comes back into the huddle. Hey, we're running the hook and lateral. What was it like in that huddle? Were you like, wait, what are we running? Or was it just like, okay, this is the play, let's go do it?
Well, we knew that was coming. We had it in practice. We knew that was coming.
Okay.
And, you don't know how it's going to work out and stuff, but logistically, it looks pretty damn good. You know how it's going to happen. And it was just executed to perfection with Duriel and the handoff and stuff like that. And like you just said, when he came in here, I think the score was 28-0.
It was 24-0, and he came back. Yeah.
24. Was it 20? Okay, it's 24-0 when Croker came in.
That's
and
right.
I mean, came all the way back from six quarters worth of football.
That's
but
right.
that was just that's the reason why we got back, because of that play right there. I mean, it just set everybody on fire. That was unbelievable.
I was on fire at home. I was screaming in my living room. But I will say, I watched that play last night, and you snapped the ball, and you came. It was Rose was on your left side, and Vigorito was off the tackle. But you came off, and you didn't have anybody in front of you. You helped out. I think it was on Kelcher.
It was on Kelcher because it was an even front. It was an even front. I was uncovered. So I came out to the play side where the call was called, and helped out. I think Kelcher was on this big Louis, where the size 21 ring. So I remember that play vividly, and I see it a lot of times on Facebook and stuff like that. I mean, it's great to look back and watch it. It was magic. It was,
After
man.
watching that play last night, because I was focused on you, knowing we were going to talk, seeing you help out on Kelcher, because Kelcher was getting close to Strock. I'm queuing that play up to success because of you. All right, so
I don't know about. Okay, I'll let you do that. I'll let you do that, Jeff. I don't get credit for a lot of stuff, so I'll let you do that. Okay.
there you go. So after the '83 season, you got traded to Philly. You played all 32 games for the 2 years you were there. Was that trade a surprise?
All right, let me just tell you about this. Let me go back in time. When Dwight Stephenson came to the Miami Dolphins in 1980, who Dwight and I to this day were great friends. We talk all the time on the phone. I didn't know who Dwight Stephenson was. I know that Neil was number one. He was number two in the draft. Okay, so they brought him in, and we were going out to practice one day. And this was after the 12-minute run. That's what Shula always do at fall practice. You go do the 12-minute run that morning and stuff, go take a shower, go into meetings and all that stuff, come out, put your pads on. It's full steam, and you have the one-on-one. You got one-on-one that first day at that end under the camera, okay? And so everybody, offense and defensive linemen, we're going one-on-one, da-da-da. So Dwight Stephenson comes up. And he's against Mike Charles. Mike Charles was about 320 pounds. He was a big boy.
Number 71. That's right.
Mike Charles, right? And he snapped that ball. He went off in him and body slammed him. And my eyes just went, whoa. And it just, for the rest of the day, it just stuck with me. I went home to my wife. You can ask my wife this. We were sitting around the table. I said, she goes, how was that day? I go, well, I said, let me just put it this way. I'm not going to be starting anymore. I can tell you that right now. I'm not going to be starting anymore. And for 80, 81, and 82, I started, and we split time. Then it got to be where I was the shotgun center. He would come in. I'd be the shotgun center. When he came in, Kuchenberg came out. They put him at right guard, and I was the shotgun center for 2 years. And I got hurt in one of those years when he came in 80 and 81. But the Super Bowl was 82 season, 83 Super Bowl. And that same thing at the Super Bowl. I was a shotgun center when they go the whole second half. Dwight was at guard, and I was at center, and then we'd play it that way. Well, I knew how good Dwight was. I mean, do I need to say any better? In fact, I think he's the best center that's ever played the game, more than Mike Webster. And Jim Langer, my good friend, God rest his soul, and that I just never seen anybody manhandle people like he did. He was just absolutely phenomenal. And to this day, we're really good friends and stuff. But anyway, that's kind of the way all that happened.
For people that don't know, Mike Charles was huge. I know him because I was a Dolphins fan.
He was about a 6'4" guy, about 320.
Yeah.
He was, and Dwight was about the same size as me. He was about an inch taller than me. And at the time, I was about 252. I played at 265 when I was in Philadelphia and stuff. But anyway, Dwight was about 250, 255, 6'2". And, when I saw what he did to Mike Charles and live, sitting there live, I go, my God. I mean, he embarrassed him. He just body slammed him.
Yeah, it killed me when he got hurt against the Jets, but I'm not going to talk about that. So
that's a good friend, Marty Lyons, that did it to him, because Marty told me, he said, "Man, I didn't mean to do it. I was doing it as a funny. I was just doing it as a funny," and he ruined his career.
Yeah. So one of the things that fans of the game don't necessarily truly understand, I want to ask you, because you experienced it. It's being traded, right? So it's like me going into my job, and I go into my boss's office and said, "Oh, by the way, I just traded you to the West Coast competitor of ours. You're on a plane tomorrow." What's it like being traded, going into a new locker room? And what was the difference between the Eagles and the Dolphins locker room?
Well, really, to be honest with you, I asked for that trade. Because I made a decision. I said, I'm not going to start here. I'm going to do shotgun center the rest of my career with it. So I said, I told Shula that, I want to get traded. So that's how that happened. And then Mary Campbell, of course, we played Philadelphia down there in the Orange Bowl. And so Marion Campbell, kind of knew who I was and stuff like that. And then he traded for me. So, no, that wasn't really a surprise. No.
Okay. So when you were in Philly, you had two quarterbacks there. You had Jaworski and you had Cunningham. You caught the beginning of Randall's career. What's it like as a center, as a lineman, to go from a pocket passer to a guy like Randall that scrambles at any moment?
Well, it wasn't designed really to be, a run, whatever. Yeah, Jaworski, we get timed with a clock. He'd run about a 5.6 40 or something like that. Of course, he was getting older in his age and stuff like that. He could throw the ball good and stuff. Randall was an athletic guy. He was an athletic guy, and his runs were not by design. That was just by in the pocket. He took off and ran. That's where he got accredited for all that stuff. But that was not by design. We had shotgun in Miami, and we had shotgun in Philadelphia. But he more than not. Of course, Jaworski didn't do that, but he would take off and run pretty often. Yes.
So I read something how Don Shula described you. I want to read it to you to get your take on your career. He said the first thing that comes to mind about Mark is toughness, both mental and physical. He's a brawler. He'll do anything to get the job done. I mean, that's a ringing endorsement from Shula. So when you look back on your career, how do you view your career, and how would you like people to view it as well?
Well, I've always been I've been an overachiever, but I mean, I'm not a 6'5", 290-pound offensive lineman and stuff. Okay. And, I always believe that there's been, destiny and everything. Just like when I broke my hand there, chances are I'd have gone off into the sunset and I never played in the NFL. Gave me an opportunity to prove myself. Okay. So, and the same thing, and then I went on and got the 9 years in the deal. Same thing happened to me at Texas A&M. The offensive center, a senior in front of me, his senior year, they were throwing passes before practice, hit him in the eye, and he had a detached retina, and he was through. And then I had to come in my sophomore year and start after about the fifth game of the season, my sophomore year, and guess who I had to start against? Louis Kelcher at SMU.
Oh,
he was at SMU. Yeah, he was at SMU. That was one of my first starts. So it's kind of like the man upstairs sometimes looked after you and stuff like that. And I think I'm very gracious about what's happened to me. And I've been with a lot of good players, a lot of great coaches. And, man, I just enjoyed the ride. I enjoyed the ride. And I don't know what else to say about it.
No, that's a great way to describe it, Mark. It really is. So when we first started talking, we were talking about your post-career and what you got involved with. And I found it very, very interesting. And we wound up talking a lot more about that than your playing days. So maybe you could fill everybody in on what you did post-career.
Well, when I was playing football, I worked at First National Bank as a loan officer, and I thought that's what I was going to go back and do as a loan officer. And as it turned out, when we showed up in Miami, I never heard about buffalo wings, but there in the players' parking lot, Eddie Houck, who had the wings place up in Fort Lauderdale, which I didn't know anything about, they would come into the parking lot after the game. We're drinking beer, and everybody's eating wings. And my wife and I started eating the wings, and I go, "Where's this coming from? We never had buffalo wings." Right. And so one thing led to another. So we go to Fort Lauderdale, start eating wings. One thing led to another. Get to know Eddie Houck and his dad pretty well. His dad's gone, and I don't know where Eddie's at these days. And Bumhauer's real good friends with him and stuff. And so they said they're going to do some franchising. So when I retired, the year that I retired, when I played the last game at Cleveland, I went straight to Fort Lauderdale to train to be a franchisee with wings for them. Okay, right out of Cleveland, I went straight to Florida. Trained there for 2 weeks, and it was really Cleveland. It was Cleveland my last two games, but trained there, everything, came back and opened my first store in 1988. I retired in 86. It'd be 88 is when I opened the first store. And then from there, I added, wound up with 4 stores here in College Station, one in Dale. Anyway, make a long story short, I did this for 37 years.
Wow.
37 years I did the Wings and More concept. And then in November of this past year, the 18th, I sold the company. And I'm part of the board of directors. These are the same people that have Chuy's restaurants, Mexican restaurants nationwide. They want to take this public, take it to where they did Chuy's and stuff. So we'll see what happens. I hope my grandkids will benefit from that, because here I'm pushing 70 years old. I don't know when that's going to be, but it was a great ride. It was a great ride with the Wings, and just so many great people that I still have people that work for me for over 30 years. I still have them working for me. In fact, Tony that was just in here, he's one of my GMs. He's been with me about 17 years. I've had so many people, the front of the house, back of the house, they worked for me for 25 to 35 years. I've done it 37. So that's a lot.
Fantastic, Mark. That's a testament to your management style. So I have to tell you, as I mentioned on the phone, we don't have Wings and More up in my area, but I went on your website today, perusing the menu, and I got to tell you, I got to get down to your area. And let me tell you some of the things I found on here. Pulled pork nacho fries. Wow.
Yeah.
My buddy introduced me to these a while ago, my buddy Frank. Pickle chips. You wouldn't think you'd fry pickles,
but you never heard of pickle chips, huh?
No, not until about a year ago, and you have them. Then you have the wings with chipotle honey mustard.
Yeah.
You have tilapia, which I love. Yeah. Steak fingers, and the biggest one that killed me today, I was looking at it, was your button busting brownie sundae.
Oh, that you eat that, you need to go get on a diet. I can tell you that right now.
That looks so good, Mark.
Back when I first started this deal, see, these guys were from up in New York, and that's where all the wings started, at the Anchor Bar in Buffalo, New York. And when we used to play Buffalo, we'd go up there and go to the Anchor Bar and stuff. We got an Anchor Bar here in Bryan College Station now. But anyway, that's where all the wings started back in the 60s. All right. And so it just, we would go up there and eat and stuff. And I didn't know anything about it. So it was, that's the reason why I got involved in it after all these years. So.
Well, I got to tell you, I got to somehow get down to one of your franchises, one of your restaurants, because it look good. So let's close this down, Mark. I'm going to put you on the binge burner. We'll do a speed round of some general questions, just quick answers. I'll fire off 3 or 4. Let's see what you got. Who's your favorite athlete growing up?
Bob Lilly.
Really? Okay.
Bob Lilly was my hero. Back in the 60s when I watched the Dallas Cowboys. I used to be the most avid Dallas Cowboy fan. From our whole family, we would cry if they lost at our house. I mean, we were just back in the 60s. I mean, that was the Dallas Cowboys. Bob Lilly, so, yes.
Did you watch them in '71 beat your Dolphins?
Yes, I did. I watched that. And I have met Bob Lilly. That was one of my, in Houston, I met him one time. But Bob Lilly was the cat's meow. There
you go. What's your favorite wing sauce?
Medium garlic.
Okay. Favorite menu item? I told you mine that I would come in order. What's your favorite? What do you like to eat there?
I get the wing and tender combo.
There you go. Last movie you saw.
Oh, God. I'm going to tell you, Scarface.
That was a while ago.
Well, I went to the Houston Rodeo here about a week ago and saw Post Malone on stage for an hour and a half. So that's probably the last movie I saw, I guess.
There you go. That's great. That's great. Mark, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you coming on. Love the stories. Love the conversation. Great stuff. Thank you so much.
Jeff, I appreciate it very much. And thank you for having me.